Welcome everyone to the live stream for the new moon in Scorpio. Glad to be here. Hope everyone's doing really, really well. I am excited to get to talk about this stuff. Here we are, right? A post-eclipse season, settling into a lot of new astrology and some wonderful moments here to kind of get us pushed into the year finish and then into 2024. I can't even believe I'm saying 2024. That's wild that we're that far into reality. Let me just jump right into it. As always, I'm going to be sharing a presentation and a PPT. I really like to work from these because it allows me to kind of have a tethering to some idea sets. Yeah, I caught the live. Yeah, great to be here, everyone. Hey, everyone, what's going on? What's going on? So what we're going to do in the video is a new moon in Scorpio breakdown, a general breakdown of its symbolism, of everything going on with it. You can see that'll be the first thing. Second, this will be a little shorter section, a couple of charts, maybe some elections that you can use for this phase of the lunation, the lunar phase, the waxing lunar phase. Then I'll do some quick horoscopes running through all signs quite fast. I don't really prepare those. These are on the fly delineations, kind of building on what we've talked about in the other sections. And so, yeah, it's a professional vibe, trying to keep it professional. I love it. And, trying to just deliver the goods, that's kind of my job. So thank you for that. Okay, let's come in to the first section. I want to talk about right out of the gate some context for this moment, for this new moon in Scorpio moment. Every transit happens in a flow of reality, a flow of the ephemeris. The ephemeris is like a river. A textual river, like a book, you open the page, it's just moving through text in order of time. Of course, you can skip forward and backwards, but life is like that too. I always tell people, they're like, well, what's going to happen with this transit? I say, well, life is a flow. So, what's happening now? That's a good indication of what might be happening in a week from now. There just may be shifts and alterations based on whatever the symbolism is indicating. But so the context becomes important for any moment in time. Let's just talk about this context. Eclipse season is over now, by one definition. And this is the first newer full moon after the last eclipse. And we get that here with the new moon in Scorpio. The next set of eclipses are in March, April 2024. And so we're really settling in. One way to divide your reality is eclipse season to eclipse season. We call it eclipse hopping, surfing eclipses. And so this one's kind of a lovely new moon because it comes right as we get into this whole 6 months of non-eclipse reality, non-eclipsed reality. And we started off with this beautiful new moon, which new moons are always beginnings, points of beginnings. And this one's even more special because of the nature of Mars and how it's configured in this new moon. So just keep in mind the eclipse season is very much a part of this moment, that we are coming out from it. And then we're riding this next 6 months with this seeding that energy. The next thing is that Mars is about to be reborn very powerfully in its cazimi with the sun. Mars will meet the sun on 18 November, purifying Mars and setting us up for a 2-year Mars cycle. And Mars, having seeded its power in the sign it loves, Scorpio, very optimistic for martial energy over this next 2 years. Remember, the last 2-year cycle had Mars in Libra, and that might have weakened some of Mars's ability to function quite as well. By one technique. And I think that's exciting for all of our martial action, movement, power. We get some of that back maybe over the next 2 years. And this new moon signals that. And then the cazimi, a mere 5 days later, additionally signals that. Let's see here. Jupiter is retrograde. I want to just point that out because Jupiter's configured to the new moon. It's retrograde. It's going to station direct on 30 December. Mercury is in Sagittarius now, just entered Sagittarius earlier this morning where I am. Love that Mercury and Sagittarius energy, don't you all? I woke up and just felt, wow, where's this energy coming from? I look and I see there is that red dot on my website. And I was like, finally, we get a planet in fire. And there's going to be Mercury there. It won't station direct. It stations direct in Sagittarius on 2 Jan. And so we've got this other little sub context of this next 6 months of some retrogrades, but they both complete right at the end of the year and the beginning of the next year. So keep that in mind, that we might be building up to the beginning of the year. And I just wanted to say that here because, I don't know, I'm just giving some context. Why not? I like the context. Mars has the same declination as the sun during the Cazimi, so it's kind of like an eclipse this time in front of the sun. Yes, there is that. Thank you, Mirka. That's a useful thing to consider. It does something else there. Those astrologers that are working with declination, I think that, like you, very important and powerful. Let's see here. This Mars Scorpio energy has sucked. Yeah, just give it some time. I guess we're almost done with it. Maybe something will shift. Some of that Mars and Scorpio related to eclipses. Both of the eclipses included Mars and Scorpio, and that might have been a little bit of a wrinkle to this moment. Plus, Mars has been, maybe say, combust or blocked, not visible, and that's a whole nother layer that might have altered the pure Mars power that we would like to see otherwise. Okay, next slide. Derived houses from the new moon. This is how I like to do these. You saw in the last live I did. And this one, it's kind of easy because Mars is in the same sign as the moon. And so it's the first house. And so everything is about the first house in terms of one method of delineating this moment. So it's a moment about you, at one symbolic level. Who are you? Why are you here? What is your reason for being? Horizon meets the earth at the ascendant point, and then the first house takes on that symbol set of, we've incarnated into this form and we have a purpose here. We have a selfhood that is in this reality that we're moving through the reality with. And so I think that's a major component or feature of this whole moment. I'm going to be thinking about this. Who am I? What do I want? Your Mars powers, knowing self, that's the Scorpionic, and acting from that knowledge. Mars is action. It's the actual act of doing. It's not the thinking. It's not the delaying. It's the act of doing. And so this whole moment what's indicated in this moment is the act of doing based on self-knowledge. And then I have here finally the things secret up until now. There may be things you've kept to yourself. There may be things that not many people know. You might have had internal struggles during eclipse season or all year or all summer that have kind of been more internal, but now they get revealed in this moment of revelation because Mars is going to meet the sun on 18 November. And we'll talk about some of that here in a second, more of that symbolically, but this is the new moon with Mars. It's like, this is the time for that new action to be seeded and then to be initiated or to be effectuated. I don't know about a total new initiation of brand new things. It's just things that have building now kind of may come to a spilling over point with that fixed sign movement of Mars and Scorpio. Mars under the beams, that's also the nature of Scorpio. These are kind of secret things. And so now that we have a new moon and then the Cazimi with Mars being made prominent, those secret things, I think, have power to be revealed in a moment of action or a denouement. Is that there's the French term for the climax? I think I pronounced that wrong. Let me see here. This Mars and Scorpio certainly can be painful. A strong Mars is going to be Mars. It doesn't become Venus. It doesn't become other things. And of course, we've seen with the global situation, it's the power of Mars, the breaking away, all of that side of Mars can really be tough and rough. So I think it is a good object lesson that when you have a strong Mars, it doesn't get us out of the nature of Mars and confronting and being with martial things. Benjamin, for you, good. I've enjoyed it. It's always mixed bag. Everything's a mixed bag. All of it. All life is a mixed bag. And I try to think about transits as continuum of meaning. And there's all different continua. There's different sides to things, and they're always kind of all operative. It's good to think about what side of a continuum a different symbol set is sitting on at a given moment, but we can't excise out one part of a symbol and just say that's not going to exist. Of course, it's going to exist. This is something I wanted to come in here with, just to remind everyone, when I delineate, this is the core of how I like to do astrology. And I use the Valens. He goes through in the first chapter a whole list of what the planets mean, but then he has this one little paragraph. I know it's small here. You probably can't read it. I'm just going to read it for you. And he summarizes each of the planets with one or two words. And so he says here, the moon becomes the ruler of foresight, the sun, the ruler of light, Saturn, the ruler of ignorance and necessity, Jupiter, the ruler of rank, crowns, and zeal. Mars becomes the ruler of action and effort. Venus, the ruler of love, desire, and beauty. Mercury, the ruler of law, friendship, and trust. And so this is the core of astrology. And you can come up with your own keywords, core words for the planetary energies, but this is what we're painting with, as it were. We're making meaning from this core symbol set. And so I wanted just to bring us to this because Mars becomes the ruler of action and effort. This is a Mars new moon with Mars with the new moon strong in Scorpio. Where is the action and effort? That's the high level summary here. And that's what we have to do. So Scorpio rising, though Mars with detriment is probably just me having a nice time. So Mars is, powerful in Scorpio. So you've got Mars in domicile in your first house. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, coming in, I want to come here for the main theme. I used this in the last stream. I'm not going to stay on Dune always, all right? I'm a Dune person. I love the film. But we're going to talk about Dune as a metaphor, analogy for everything that's going on right now. And because it's a film about, it's very martial, isn't it? There's going to be Dune spoilers. If you don't want those, I'm sorry, you can leave here. Dune has been around for a long, long time. I feel like it's kind of in the collective culture, sort of like Shakespeare or something, where, you're going to hear people talking about spoilers because it's part of our culture. Paul Atreides must die. There's the final scene in Dune. The one way to look at this film, it's all leading up to this final scene, Dune 1 by Denis Villeneuve. This final scene where Paul Atreides basically he steps into his power. That's the character arc of the protagonist. He's this kind of weakling that steps into his power in the final scene. And in this final scene, there's this thing where Paul Atreides must die for the Kwisatz Haderach to be born. Paul Atreides becomes this extremely powerful dude, all right? And in this final moment, he has to face this guy, Jameis. Oh, by the way, I can't play the videos anymore. They gave me a advertising thing. I didn't appeal it, but basically I'm not going to be playing videos. That was fun, wasn't it, to get to play those clips, but I'm not going to do that anymore. So I got pictures here instead. The idea is that to become yourself, this is what I want us to think about in this new moon moment. What does it mean to become yourself? We're in a constant state of becoming, right? Every day we take action and we become ourselves, hopefully closer to what we're meant to be here through the actions that we take. And, this is how I want you to think about this moment. Like, who are you becoming, right? What must you fight for? And this is the key with this scene. Paul doesn't get a choice in this scene. They're fighting for survival, and he's forced into this final moment where he has to basically kill someone for the first time. And that's the nature of the climax. Paul's never killed a man. He's forced to step into his powers as a warrior and leader in his fight with Jameis as a survival. And I've lived through a bunch of these Mars Cazimis. It often is like that. You're forced to do something. There's no other choice. And you realize in the moment, wow, you're stepping into something that was inevitable. And you then take that action with courage. Sometimes it's required with these Mars Cazimis. So think about your courage, the actions you need to take to become yourself this weekend and into next week. There's something here. I'm going to skip that. But in that scene, it's funny because Paul, he beats Jameis and then says, let's yield. And the people are like, no, the rules, you've got to kill him, Paul. That's the rules. And then he, of course, kills him. And he becomes a step closer to the Kwisatz Haderach, or this powerful being that Paul Atreides becomes. So this is the main idea. The main analogy for this moment is who are you becoming? What must you do to honor who you're becoming and who you are? And that's what this new moon moment is. Remember the new moon date. I want to just go back quickly. I didn't say that earlier. 13 November, Monday, 0927 UTC. So we're talking about Monday morning, very early, if you're in America or in the Americas. We're talking about Monday in the afternoon in Asia and down under and all of those places. And in Europe, we're talking about Monday morning, AM. Okay, next slide. Hey, thank you, Cameron, for the compliment on the blazer. Appreciate that. Yeah, try to just, look the part, I guess. I guess there is no part for an astrologer. That's kind of a good thing with our job. We don't really have a dress code. Just to clarify, a good time to take action, initiate. Let me say this, MJ. I mean, it's the symbolism of the moment is evocative of that. Now, if we're talking about electional astrology, I'm going to show you some charts where maybe it's better to actually initiate if it's something big. But the symbolism of the moment is saying that we may have to take action, right? We must do it because that's who we are, and that's what the energy of the new moon is bringing us into. So it's more that we may find ourselves having to take action rather than deliberation about the exact good time. I'm not sure that electional chart is the chart I would go with. Scorpio moon, it's just generally one we don't think about initiating some kind of big new action on. Yeah, scary cards, Blue Jay. Look, these are the tarot cards that correspond to Mars and Scorpio. Mars is the tower, okay? And this is the Golden Dawn correspondence systems. I think they also derive from some earlier writers. I forgot the French authors that did correspondences before the Golden Dawn that the Golden Dawn pulled from. I can get those later, and then this is Scorpio. But I know they're scary, but just trust me, I'm not going to delineate these in a scary way. Change has been inevitable, right? That's what this is about. It's the inevitable change that it's necessary change. It's been inevitable. It's been necessary, but it arrives now because Mars is Kazimi'd on 18 November, and Mars is with this new moon. This is good change. Look, the tower is good change. We all need a good tower moment. I mean, you want to break out of this, confinement of a tower. I will say, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it later, not focus too much on it, but Uranus is exactly opposite from Taurus, this new moon. This is the Uranian bolt of lightning. That's also maybe part of this moment. I've always said if I had to pick a traditional planet that's like Uranus, I pick Mars. So you get this lightning flash of movement and action, whether you want to just look at Mars or bring Uranus in, it doesn't matter. You get a tower moment potentially in the new moon. The old self is forever gone, right? The self that was in this tower is gone and you've been liberated. Mars can liberate. And we get liberated from the confinement. And, there's this saying, this is what I am, or this is my saying, this is what I am, this is what I want, and this is what I will do. And then we do it. And so it's the clarity. I've always thought about Scorpio as the internal clarifications of passion and motivation and self. And then Mars is supported from that knowledge. I talk about that a little bit later. But just know that the tarot, there may be a tower moment here. And then the death card is also the life card. It's the same. Look at the background. It's growth here. These people have seen death and they're going to be forever changed, right? And death is regenerative. And so, this horse is strong and powerful. And so I would encourage you, I know they're scary cards, but whatever the old self, like the old Paul Atreides, he had to die for the new Paul Atreides to be born. There's something here where there's clarifications around who you are, what you want, and what you will do, and then doing it in this moment. And I'm very hopeful for a lot of you out there that you're going to have some really powerful stuff going on in your lives where this Mars can support action that's been long coming. So yeah, let's get spooky with it. Rapunzel did. Let's see here. Just do it with the tower. Absolutely. Let's see here. I like this. Breaking out, change, action, regeneration. Beautiful keywords, I think, for this moment. Wonderful, for sure. Okay, let me just keep going. The next slide. Derived houses from the new moon. Venus and Libra in the 12th rules by Trigon. So when we come to Scorpio, there's one planet, right? It's Mars and Scorpio. That rules by domicile. There's no exaltation for Scorpio, but there is a triplicity lord, and that triplicity lord is Venus by day. And so if we pick one other planet, there's different ways to pick planets and how they may be influencing a given moment. I like rulership. Whole sign rulership is the way in. We'll also talk a little bit about Saturn in a second. We'll talk about Jupiter in terms of these aspects. But in terms of whole sign rulership, we're brought very closely into Venus and Libra. And this is the only one, this new moon, where you have the strong Venus and Libra with Mars and Scorpio. So this has been a special moment. It's like a 3-week moment. Both Mars and Venus are powerful. Both of them have ruled every eclipse for a long time, and now they're both powerful here. It's almost like all of last year and all of this year is leading up to this powerful moment, right, of Mars and Venus both strong and powerful, with a new moon initiation moment and a Cazimi 5 days later. But let's talk a little bit about Venus and Libra. In the 12th house, derived houses of the new moon, ruling by Trigon, depending on your location, in terms of the first Trigon Lord. Look, we're retreating here. This is the retreat. It's this kind of dissonance. This is war and action. This is sort of retreat, 12th house, and retreating into the rules, into relations, talking to advisors, the relationships we've built as a method of defense, right? That's a whole component in this moment. And so and I think that's worth considering, as you're thinking about your martial action, who are the people in your corner that maybe you have planned with, or that you can go back to? Let's say you make a big action on Sunday or Monday or next week. You have to tell your partner, hey, it's not working, or hey, I need this now. And then it changes everything, a tower moment in your relationship, right? Mars and Venus, relationship planets. Who can you go to? Is this a therapist? Is this your family, close family, children? Who's your Venus and Libra that can provide some kind of, relational lattice work that supports whatever is happening with this Mars stuff? And, a lot of people, theories of aversion, I could talk about this, is that you have some people say, well, this, because it's not communicating, well, it doesn't operate. And that's not how I see aversion. I mean, it operates, but through a more 12th house mode. It's there, it's doing this whole other thing. And so think about your retreat methods and the people that can be supportive during a very difficult, maybe martial moment, a tower moment. I think about the collective identity around war. We're going to talk about that later. I mean, we have these wars going on. I mean, I pull up my ex Twitter account, any social media, real dark stuff, right? Imagery that's horrific, and we need to retreat at times here. We may need to get lost a little bit. And I'm not saying spiritual bypass, but there may need a strategy for how we cope. And I think this can be going into rules, Libran stuff, right? The Libra, who are we? What are the rules? I'm going to talk more about that later. This is going on a while. It's fine. I'm just going to, time doesn't matter. This will be timestamped. Come back. You can listen to any segment of this that you want. There's talk now, like all this talk of ceasefire, right? Everybody's ceasefire. And I think that is important. That's kind of a 12th house component with Venus so powerful. Venus is peace in a certain way. But think about this in the context, this is more of an analogy. What's your own personal ceasefire that you may need right now? That martial action may be, hey, let's do a ceasefire. That's a way to stop, use Mars that is stopping Mars. That's martial. That's the action, right? So you might consider that simply as a metaphor. Are there things right now where you may want to do more of the Libra retreat and kind of stop the wars? And maybe that comes after your tower moment or after the action that you're going to initiate. What do I have here? What legal regimes, rules, agreement structures can be appealed to? What in your life? Maybe you've got people that, you rely on, you've got some agreements. Hey, that friend you talk to every Thursday, the person you get coffee with every Wednesday, your gym partner, whatever it is, that can be relied on. Those regimens of commitments that we've made around relations as something we can retreat into in this moment. Communication is Libra, articulation, refining the language of order. I love the communication side of Libra. It's a Mercury ruled sign, as you'll see. And yeah, we want the bombing to stop in Gaza. I agree. I don't think that's too political here. Let's hope that could stop soon. All of that bombing. Okay, let me go to the next slide. This is also in Dune, and I want to come back to the 12th house and the Venus in Libra component. It's a big component of Dune because the reason why Paul knows he has to take that action in that final scene is because Paul has seen visions his whole life, because he is part of his lineage, his bloodline is part of a magical order called the Bene Gesserit. And his mom brought him through that. And it's like this kind of magical female order. And Paul was a male born into that bloodline. And so he's been seeing visions of love and dreams the whole movie. And that helped him leading up to this moment. As he's breathing in the spice, he kind of goes on these trippy visions. It's all 12th house stuff. And he sees his future and he realizes that he's got to do this in the moment. Like it all leads up to that moment where he becomes himself, takes action, and of course fights Jameis and wins. And so I think it's a great example of how the 12th house spiritual journeying can come into play right now. And there's an interfacement. Look, the 12th and the 1st are interfacing. You see in ancient texts, the 12th is everything leading up to the birth. It's the labor process. Then there's the birth. The birth and labor are intimately linked. And so the 12th house of your dream, vision, spiritual work as retreat, that can support this tower moment or this Mars moment that you may be having too. So don't sleep on the spiritual connectivity and the dream work right now, all weekend, maybe leading up to something next week. Spice worms. Yeah, let's eat those spice worms. I just did some work on energetic agreements this morning. Good. And I think we should. I mean, let me show you this. Like this is, I think, a great thing to work during this time, whether that's cord cutting or just energetic kind of, these etheric realms exist. All right. I believe we have these kind of links to people and the things and places, and we can kind of work with that at an energy level. I hope that's not too wild or tripped out, but I'm kind of new age. I fully admit that. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. We've got world too much right now, and I think it is. I mean, look, we're not built for this in a certain sense. We're not built for this kind of real time front row seat to this kind of devastation. And though I think we have to see it, we have to take care of our mental health and our emotional health and our spiritual health. And so there might be times, and I know for me it's been like this, but there might continue to be times this month where you need to retreat into music. The 12th house Venus in Libra, retreat into it if the world is too much. It's been helping me tremendously. I never wear headphones. And this all month, I've been wearing, this is like me. I know this isn't me. This is an AI generated woman. But I've been wearing these headphones on the street and I've got my phone playing music. It's really helped me just get settled and kind of get into these dreamy music realms. It's a soul soothing component to this moment. And I think it fits with Venus in Libra, 12th from the new moon. I'll be continuing to do it. It's really been a soothe and a balm. I've been listening to some music, from a lot of music, but one album this last few days, it came back into my feed. I've been playing it again. I love this record from 2005. It's a banger from 2005. The nodal return of this record called I'm a Wide Awake It's Morning by an artist, Bright Eyes. This was kind of my scene back when I was in my kind of youthful music phase, but still an excellent record. You might want to find some music from, your past, basically just music you like. I think Venus and Libra, it's power. Venus is extant. So find art or creativity or music you like. That might help you. Venus is not just music. It's other things that soothe, other things that give you good feelings. I like this record because it's an anti-war. There's like all this, it's very creative and poetic, but there's like they're marching for the Iraq war. In this record, that a lot of the subject matter has to deal with marches in New York City back in 2003 when that happened. I was marching in Austin, Texas. It was a really strange moment in reality. Biggest marches in my life. Okay, let's come to the next slide. All right, so Lua is a beautiful track. I love that one. So, okay, getting lost in music, the unknown. Okay, so this is what I'm getting lost in music and the unknown and in the strange new tech realities. I want to speak a little bit about Saturn and Pisces, just because it exchanges exaltations right now with Venus. You see that. And though they're not aspecting, they're not mutually received, there is this exchange where it's like it's Venus, Saturn power, Venus plus Saturn powers in these skies and in this moment. I like Saturn and Pisces because it does have that trine, that wide orb trine to the new moon moment, which brings in the 5th house of creativity. And we get this idea of all the creative stuff. As Saturn stationed direct here on 4 November, all that day, and then the few days before and after, a bunch of AI companies said, here's all of our new tech. X Twitter has a new AI service called Grok. I just to play with the AIs. It's going to extend us the creativity. It's like having new arms and legs, going way deeper into reality. I've been coding with it. I've got all kinds of new coding stuff coming out just from AI, and it's all astrology related. But this can extend. Saturn is the boundaries of reality. Pisces is the boundless. And so we have this idea to get to like unbound creativity, this opportunity. And I think this new moon, seeding action, the first new moon after eclipse season, setting up the next 6 months, setting up the next 2 years of Mars' cycle. And you got the creative new frontiers of creativity. So get creative. Those of you out there are creative, really rely on that in this moment is my advice. Venus and Libra, Saturn and Pisces. It's this kind of long, deep creative powers that we can retreat into for healing. And for a settlement and for, self-actualization. Okay, let me push. This was some of the news. I just typed in AI right before I went on this call. Get down that rabbit hole, Taco. Yep, get right down that creative rabbit hole. Creativity is, you get lost in it. That's the beauty of it. I've been talking to some friends about guitar. I've played guitar my whole life. I started playing when I was really young. I haven't played in a few years. It's been a few years. I want to get one. But people around me, I'm getting a guitar, I'm buying a guitar. I've been telling my friends, it's the best thing because you just get lost in it. I used to play for just hours and you don't even know where you are. And so that's the beauty of creativity and whatever you're doing, but music in particular, it's so visceral that you can get lost and it connects us to these kind of deep well springs of selfhood. So yes, I love it. Okay. I just wanted to point out here, I typed in AI news. It's all about using AI to combat wildfires. That's like Saturn, right? We can kind of contain the uncontrollable, maybe using the tech. There's these conversations about rules in AI. I think that's the Venus in Libra with Saturn and Pisces. It's like, what are the laws for AI? There is the deal with Hollywood where they ended the strike. A lot of that was negotiating AI. You can see that Venus and Libra, Saturn and Pisces. The actors signed a deal. They came to a concordance, and so the Venus can support the Saturn, right? The new frontiers are supported by the rules right now in this moment. So just think about some of that. Okay, let me skip on. Boy, it's going longer than I thought. That's okay. We'll just keep talking. Doesn't matter. You'll have the timestamps. Back to the next slide. Innovations in resource comprehension, Mercury and Sagittarius, second house. The reason why I want to talk more about Mercury right now is that you've got the trigon lord of Venus by night is Mercury. And they're making a very close sextile in this chart. This is one of my favorite signatures of the month, of the whole month, by the way, is the sextile between Venus and Mercury, Sag and Libra, very active signs. And it does give us a sense of, what do I say, innovations in resource comprehension, because this is second house from the new moon. Let me just read what I have here. Foreign items, okay? This is foreign things around us, new ways of experimenting with things. So just look around you. Like, I have some chairs over here. I use them for all kinds of weird stuff, by the way. But, it's that famous image where someone turns the chair upside down. Like, if someone had no idea what a chair was, how might they use it? They might use it in some very weird way that's functional for their local space. So things that might not be totally logical, but functional, trying many things that don't exactly seem normal. This, I think, is the real power of Mercury in Sagittarius. It's doing stuff in ways that are unorthodox around. It could be all number of things, language, it could be around what we're studying, study something new. I mean, this is the perfect way to come in with Mercury and Sagittarius. And again, it might help with the rules. And I'll show you here in the next slide. I'm going to talk about more about that later rather than doing this now. Coming back to Dune, Mercury and Sagittarius, putting into practice the learning, even though you're not very good at it. I think that's a perfect thing. You learn something, that's the mercurial, you read about it. And then the Sagittarius is doing it, even though you might fail, or you might fail a few times, or it doesn't quite feel right yet. That's the maybe Mercury in detriment or exile. These are the classic Mercury and Sag, traveling and learning as you go. Right? Just showing up in a new culture. I remember when I went to Thailand for the first time, I had never been, never studied it, had no idea, just bought the ticket. And I got off the plane. It was shocking to me how everything's in a different language and in a different script. And I had no idea what anything was. And it was so fun. One of the most freeing moments of my life. But that's Mercury and Sag. You learn by doing, even if it isn't perfect. And it's great. This is great, and a great and necessary strategy sometimes, especially to break us out of like a tower moment. You're landing on the ground and it could be all new. And you're just kind of learning as we go in terms of how we describe it. In Dune, Paul Atreides, before he gets to Arrakis, he studies the customs of the local population. And then by the end of the movie, he has to put it's the way they walk in the desert because these worms can eat them. And he puts it into practice, and he then teaches his mom how to walk that way too. So I think it's a great example of how, leading up to that Mars moment of action, we might have to be deploying these kind of new mercurial understandings and new local customs in order to kind of cope with the consequences or kind of the necessity of the moment. Okay, let me move on here and to see what's going on here. Yes, digital ass and a digital urn. Yeah, I saw Bright Eyes on that tour. He came to Austin. I remember that. Okay. Let me continue here. This is another just component. This is more context, less delineation, but I want you all to remember that Mercury came into Sagittarius today. I'm glad I'm doing this with Mercury and Sag, by the way. We need that. I was kind of tired, to be honest, of everything being in Scorpio. I want to get out to some of this fire, and later in November, it will increasingly become fire energy. So I think if you've been feeling throttled from eclipses and maybe it's just been so heavy, look for more opportunities for movement later in November, starting today. But Mercury in Sagittarius is something we'd better get used to because it remains until mid-January. Keep this in mind. It's November 10th to January 14th. This is when Mercury finally leaves Sagittarius for good. Now it goes into Capricorn, where it stations retrograde, but this larger Mercury in Sagittarius story is happening now. kicking off. And remember what it is. It's all of this traveling, learning new cultures, learning by doing, everything I just talked about. Get used to that because it's a big signature here. And I think when Mercury stations direct in early January, there's a peak and a real sloughing off of whatever challenges have arisen related to this. And we're moving into January with a lot of this same energy. We kick off early January with this same energy. So, all right, let's shift. I want to come back. What other things can we learn here? Is that we study international law at this moment of history with what's happening with these wars. And you see the discourse online. I think it's good, one, just to process what's happening, to study like history and international law. It's easy just to have a reaction and just to say something or parrot something. And I'm talking to myself. Okay. But what if I actually learned a little bit about some of the history and the context? Because it's always super complex. I mean, there's people that get PhDs in this stuff. And I'm talking about international relations, particularly about this conflict. This was from in Palestine, Israel. Sam Husseini, he's a White House correspondent. So this is just one example. I saw this tweet out, I think, last night. And he's tweeting a whole write-up about some of the legal memos in American foreign political circles around like niceties of legality around this situation. And this is the kind of stuff I think we might have to learn with Mercury and Sagittarius to process Venus and Libra and to help support the martial action. Anyhow, learning new stuff, needing to learn that new stuff because the world is changing. World is changing, a lot of dynamic events, and Mercury and Sagittarius means let's learn and study and learn new things. This is the peak of that Venus sextile Mercury moment. It's 15 November, so just 3 days before the Cazimi and Mars, 2 days after the new moon. But this is an example of this journalist's write-up. There was the 1978 Hansel Memorandum, and this relates to applying the Fourth Geneva Convention to the West Bank and Gaza. He's quoting law professors. And then Mike Pompeo under Trump said they are going to, repudiate that Hansel Memorandum, and the Biden administration hasn't clarified whether it applies or doesn't. It's just one example of how Mercury and Sagittarius can be useful as we're processing the moment and we are talking about events as they unfold. And so I wanted to offer that as an example. There's also this notion of the ceasefire now, where you have Venus and Libra, right? Macron has come out and said, let's do a ceasefire. We might continue to have that as Venus stays here all month, where there's a kind of international community saying, hey, let's stop this stuff and let's bring it into more legalistic or negotiating terms for how this stuff can end. Okay, so let me see here. Let me keep going. And I know this is hot and controversial. Listen, I mean, I want to talk about the astrology, but I almost feel like I would be abdicating my responsibilities to not bring some of this stuff in. It's the story in terms of a mundane perspective. So I want to add it in. All right, let's keep going. Here is the map of the new moon. You can see Mars runs right through Jerusalem. I'm not going to say much more about that, but our mind, our attention, our thoughts, the whole world's thinking about this as we have a new moon with Mars running right through it. That alone is interesting because the astro map is being reflected in the discourse in the human realm, let alone what's going to happen in terms of events here this next week with the new moon and Mars culminating there in Jerusalem and in Israel, Palestine. I wanted to say this. I'm kind of doing this if I talk about that situation. I want us to remember there was a study in the early 90s. They did transcendental meditation and it reduced violent crime in Washington, D.C. You can type it in, just type in, this is the Institute of Science, Technology, and Public Policy, and they have an article about it. With strong Venus, right, and Libra, wishing and hoping for peace and good tidings. And may all beings be at ease. These are the wishes that I like to send out as much as I can. Hopefully every day I can do some loving kindness meditation. But I do think we might actually be able to heal some of this stuff with our inner love. And then, of course, activism. I know a lot of astrologers are being very active one way or the other. And that can be important to share if people want to do that. But the spiritual component, I think, can bring healing to that situation. And I'm hoping for that with Venus and Libra. Okay, let me move on. I just want to close this and say, go to this video. As you know, I'm doing a monthly forecast with Dan Waits and Steph Koifman on the World Astrology Report YouTube channel. We break a lot of that down in way more detail there. And just know you're going to get a different side of things from this channel rather than these long lives with me. So check it out if you want more from that astro map and some of the hard mundane. Okay, I'm kind of closing down the delineation about the new moon here, but just know that Mars and Scorpio with the luminaries of, here, and then there are versions here, and it may just be that this Mars and Scorpio in this first house, derived houses from the new moon, really is more important than everything else that I said. I kind of painted different pictures there with some of the other configurations, but this is just to come back and summarize, this is what I encourage you to think about. Action, self. Okay. The self power might just take over here in spite of everything else. That's what happens in astrology. Sometimes when a planet is so powerful and so closely configured to like the ascendant or other important points like the moon and sun in this case, it just takes over the whole chart. And that's what we're grappling with, is where is your power? Who are you becoming? What are you forced to do as a result of realizations of selfhood in this moment? And so I want to just keep us on track here. That's the main signature. Now, Jupiter and Uranus opposite, you can see that. I think that's part of why I mentioned the direct station of Jupiter at the end of the year, because whatever this new self is, it's having to contend with, and it's the mirror of the self is being shown to it with Jupiter and Taurus and Uranus and Taurus. And I have here that there may be this new self that's being born this weekend and next week is in relation to others. And of course, the self is always in relation to others. That's why astrology is so beautiful. It's a circle. Any point of the circle is reflected at its opposite. The ascendant and the descendant. Self is opposite the other. But look for that. Is there a person in your life right now? Is there wisdom that's coming from a wise elder or person or some kind of person? Is there a surprising arrival of someone on the scene, a Uranian person that can support? And if we go back to Dune, that's Janus. Go watch that last scene. So they're ready to end and just, okay, we're going to walk to the city. We'll resolve everything later. And in this Uranian flash, Janus says, no, I will not have Paul, and I'm going to fight Paul right now. It's this surprising Uranian that emerges in terms of the other. And that forces Paul to then kill Janus and step into his power. So it may be part of your weekend and week that there's the emergence of another or a person that is propelling you into your new selfhood. Okay, so let me come now to this other component of the Uranian flash. What if it's just an internal insight where it's just, I'm not into this. I'm actually not into this. This actually isn't me. I don't like this, really. And that becomes the insight of this moment, where then once that insight emerges, then the actions are very easy after that. I'm sure many out there have had this in your life where, to really do something well, passion and alignment helps. I talked about that earlier, but when you have that insight of, I don't like this, I'm not this isn't who I am, then we just can act very easily. And I remember I quit a job on the first day before in my life, got this job, and I showed up and I hated it. And I went down. It was in New York. I moved to New York in my right around that same nodal transit. So it's interesting we're talking about this. I was very young, just out of college, and I got this horrible job in the basement of some high rise in Midtown. And I walk in. I'm sitting in front of a computer, and they would send us on a lunch break after a few hours. I just didn't come back. I had to walk out. It wasn't in alignment with my selfhood. That was my martial action. But you might have this flash of what you're really about here as a part of what Uranus can do. Some things can't be faked. You can't fake love. You can't fake passion. You can't fake desire. You can try, but everybody knows, right? And so thinking about that where we make love is a verb. This is more about how passion and alignment helps. When we love, we actually then are into action to make love with someone. We make it. We act from a place of love. We do love. And this is Mars. This is what Mars is. It's the action, remember. And this typifies Scorpio, that we have deep and profound emotion. That's a verb, and how it's implemented. Okay, I'm going to finish this off here. I know very, very soon. I just wanted to say his mom in this final scene, this is the Venus and Libra component. His mom says, look, we have powerful friends. Help us get off world. She pulled the Libra card. Here's our royal friends. And Paul turns. This is after the fight. He's killed Janus. So his mom's still trying to get him away from his fate. And Paul he knows what he has to do. He's like, no. And he says, my road leads into the desert. I can see it. He knows where his road leads now. And he denies the Venus in Libra. And he just says, and this could be that aversion in the chart where Venus is de-emphasized and it's that martial action that takes over. Scorpio takes over. All right, so I think that's it. The final thing I wanted to look at actually is Timothy Chalamet. His midheaven is in a Venus-ruled midheaven, Taurus. These are both AA rated charts. Zendaya has a Mars Scorpio-ruled midheaven. And so you can see it's this Venus-Mars dance that we've been talking about these last two videos. It was a lunar eclipse in Taurus, and we talked about Dune, and now it's a new moon in Scorpio. We're still talking about Dune. I won't be talking about Dune again for a long, long time. I love it. I think Dune is like the best film. It's so rich and accurate, and that's what powerful mythology is. It really is a wellspring of meaning. So, okay, now onto the elections. We have two that I want to point out, and these are just general elections of good energy, good vibes. All right, this isn't, if you want a specific election for your chart, you need to have it rooted and you need to find an electional astrologer. There's some good ones out there. But if you're going to go on the fly and maybe without getting that done by a professional, just know these are some that you may want to consider for some action. This is that Moon Venus air trine. I love how we can pivot around Venus and Libra, this waxing phase, because Venus is getting closer to that south node. But this is we had that conjunction on the 8th and the 9th, Moon Venus. Now we get the air trine, Moon trine Venus, this Aquarius moon. Wonderful for the beauty of ideas, the ideation of creation, right? New ideas and mental forms coming in that can really propel creativity. You know, Saturn and Pisces, all that story we described, you get that in this chart with the moon applying to Venus closely and ruled by Saturn and Pisces. Jupiter and Taurus also sees the moon. This is actually a benefic enclosure for sure. The moon is separating from Jupiter and Taurus, applying to Venus by trine. So look at this one, 19 November 2023, 8 in the morning, UTC. This could be a really, really nice moon. You have Mars still in the heart of the sun as well. This is the day after the Cazimi, and you get Mars right in the heart of the sun still. So this could be a lovely waxing moon moment to do some cool stuff. Whatever you got on your plate, you know, life is a flow. We always have stuff we can initiate. Hell, I'm tweeting every day. I can always elect those tweets. Sometimes I do, rarely I do that anymore. But, you know, if you have a big video or something you want to publish or anything that's going on in your life. So leaving didn't work out too well for me, though. Not enough written yet. Yeah. So, you know, good luck. You know, you might find, I actually had another here. Let me just show you this. I had another Mars Cazimi in my personal lore where I left a job I had had for a long time. I liked the job, but it was part of my becoming what I am now. It was a Mars Cazimi, and I quit on that day. And it was the right thing to do. And that Mars Cazimi really gave me the power to quit that job. Something I wasn't really keen on having to do, but in terms of telling these people I worked with for years. So look for that. You might have some of those Mars Cazimi moments this week, whatever that is in your life, where you have to assert your knowledge of self and act from that knowledge. Okay, the next chart, and this is the next one I'm interested in this phase, is 23 November, Thursday. This is Thanksgiving. I kind of like Thanksgiving with the moon in Aries, ruled by Mars and Scorpio, but it makes that aspect all day. It's applying to Venus and Libra. And I think this is the last little Venus and Libra moment that we can get. It's 7 degrees away from that south node. Look at that. This is that last moon Venus aspect. Once we get to that Gemini moon, Venus is darn close to the nodes. It really gets wonky and nodal. And that's probably happening here too, but this might be the still some remnant of Venus and Libra that's maybe unadulterated in some sense from that south node. So just know that. Alternatively, this might be, you know, de-emphasized as a useful election, and you might want to just think about how nodal and eclipsy Thanksgiving might be with your family, and just to be aware that that could be some kind of issue here to feel into the fate of your soulmate and your family group and all of that stuff. All right. So yeah, might skip the holiday. You know, it may be good just to chill or relax, but I think that Venus opposition can be useful. I really do. I think Venus and the moon applying to Venus with a strong Mars can somehow win the day, maybe over worst case scenarios, at least for a lot of the day. This will be in the evening in the Americas, where people are celebrating Thanksgiving. So you may look for this, later in the day. As evening becomes night, things might want to be. You might want to retreat more so. Okay. So that's it for this phase. You can schedule astrology readings with me at my website, SJAnderson144. Always check out my reading schedule there. And now I'm going to take a pause, and we're going to shift into the horoscopes phase of this. I'm just going to drink some tea and pause here while we do that. Those of you, take care if you don't want to hear me run through that. It was great to be with you. Thanks for joining this live. We'll talk really, really soon. Okay, so just drink a little bit more tea, get my brain firing with, it's a strong black tea. Okay, what I was just going to say, there's timestamps for those horoscopes. So if you don't want to watch this, you can drop off the live. Just go to your timestamp if you're curious and you want to see a little bit of some horoscopy later. This will be live, and I'll get those timestamps in the next few hours. So, okay, so let's just run through these. Aries, what's going on in this moment for you? It's 8th house stuff. If you're Aries or Aries rising, where are your shared assets right now? What actions do you need to take around shared resources? Maybe there's a new budget that you're having to share with people. Maybe it's like telling people you can't fund the deal. Maybe it is asking for renegotiations around terms of some kind of deal. That's a major theme here with the 8th house. If it's some other level, maybe you're contemplating liminal spaces. What happens when we traverse this realm into the next? This could be some deep, heavy realizations around the nature of being itself. The Venus Mercury sextile here is partnership and travel and foreign land. Everything I had said earlier about like trying new foreign things and learning new skills comes in. And then that partner component, maybe your spouse or partner can be of great assistance here as you're having to navigate some difficult 8th house decisions or to take new action surrounding your 8th house topics. Taurus, yes, Andrea, I love black tea, American, but all my ancestors are from England, or like 90% of them. So I drink it for them. I love Earl Grey, so that's kind of my favorite, but I think this is not Earl Grey. This is just a pure black. Definitely a tea head, not in the William S. Burroughs style tea head. I'm a tea head in terms of the drink tea. Okay, Taurus, what's going down? Jupiter in your first, that direct station of Jupiter, I think you're going to have some major self-clarifications still coming for you, Taurus, as we get into the end of this year. So hold on for a real fresh you that can be renewed and moving ahead into 2024 with that direct station of Jupiter. We're talking more about that as it arrives. But this is a moment where you may have to act with a spouse or partner. Maybe you're having a spouse or partner acting, and that this is about them. Remember, these moments aren't always about us. I mean, what if your spouse or partner has some major thing going on and they're having some kind of Marshall Tower moment, and this is about you bringing your wisdom and truth and love to them to navigate with them during this time? It could certainly be about that. Of course, you have things like breakups and things like telling someone you love them, or telling, maybe not love bombing, but, hey, I like you, will you go on a date with me? This could very much be supported right now. The sextile of Venus and Mercury very much are in these so-called dark houses of the 6th and 8th. This kind of feels heavy, where it's like health and routine and money around the partnership. And maybe that's what the Tower moment's about. Your partnership is going through a more serious phase in terms of having to clarify some of the get real sides of things. And you've got this Mars Cazimian new moon moving you into some of those new realizations. Okay, let's go to Gem and I. We've got here with Gemini going down. What's up with Gemini? Sorry, I was just reading some comments here. Yeah, I'm glad to hear some of those stuff is resonating with you. Listen, these horoscopes are very house-based in terms of how I do astrology. It's house-based. That's why we need an ascendant and an accurate birth time. Now we get the topics. And you can see how you need it, actually, to have a very custom-tailored delineation. we did the general delineation earlier, and that brought us into a certain set of themes. At one level, the symbols are operating. But now when we know a rising sign or when we know a sun sign, you get a whole level of customization that you can't have. And then if we had your natal chart, this is what astrology readings are for. You actually have a whole another deeper understanding of what Scorpio means. Like for Gemini rising, let's say you had Mars in Virgo. Now we know we have to talk about the fourth house a priori. So that's what we're missing here with these, with this spouse or partner, where though, okay, anybody in your life, when I say spouse or partner, any people that you're in an intimacy with, this could be anybody, could be the mailman, but it's people that we engage dyadically with. Okay, so let's go now, Gemini. We have everything happening in the sixth. We have this major health stuff. This could feel like a new diet. It feels like finally saying, I'm going to throw the cigarettes in the toilet, which I've done hundreds of times in my life, finally, until I quit smoking many years ago. But this could be a renewed commitment to a 2-year health cycle, whatever it's going to be for you, whatever you're needing health-wise. Gym, I mean, Mars, we think, is the quintessential training, building muscle. It's the training that's done in the barracks, the military, it's the order, it's all of that stuff. Maybe you're going to clean your house and start some new rhythms or routines. I could see that being, I like this actually for you, Gemini rising. I think it's a wonderful thing to have a nice sixth house refreshment with that, with your ruler, right? Mars there getting reborn. Venus and Mercury, this could be about children and creativity with the partner. Maybe this is like home cleaning with the family and you make it fun, right? With your kids and your partner or whoever you're going to, is your dyadic person in this context. This could also be about like cleaning the studio for creativity, right? So you can have a clear studio so you can do that Venus magic of the creative life here. So, okay, Jim, that's you. Moving on. Cancer rising, what's going down with you? Beauty to have a fifth house story here with this Cazimi and with this new moon. How are your kids? Are you creating anything new? And remember, Mars is not simply artistic creativity. Creativity is not simply artistic. Creativity is needed in every step of life. I mean, I can creatively boil this water and have the tea leaves here and lift. There's a creation in that. It's a very Zen idea that we create with every moment. It's infused with enlightenment, every act and every moment. What do they say? Chop wood, carry water, and that's the enlightenment. So there. And I think chop wood is perfect here for you because Mars is a particular style of building that is tool-based. Mars means chopping and cutting and making. So what if you're building something right now, Cancer rising, maybe with, Cancer being home, there's some kind of home work project that you're doing. And you have Venus and Libra. It's part of that Venus and Libra story for you is beautifying the home space with some real creative projects around the home to build. I love that. I can see that being really supportive and useful for you right now. Okay, moving on. Leo rising. Let's see here. We've got a Leo rising. Sorry, I was checking out the comments. Always like when I shift, I go to the comments and so I was a little bit distracted here. Let me come into Leo rising. Sun, now we're talking fourth house stuff. This really feels like maybe a move. I don't know if you've been moving. I don't know if you've moved recently, but maybe you're finally settling in. Actually, I'm thinking of some Leo rising friends, one in particular that moved during eclipse season. I bet this is going well for her. I'll have to follow up with her, but this could be a moment where that new home space is finally being settled into. And now you get to kick off a whole new cycle around the home theme. Remember, everybody, we had eclipses in Scorpio since 2022, all 2022 and into 2023. And I should have said this in the delineation. Shoot, I forgot. This is a major story of everything, which is that we're done with eclipses and now we get the Cazimi of Mars. It's like the inversions of eclipses, and now we get the ruling planet of that eclipse sign there seated by the sun. It's beautifully auspicious for all of the Scorpio sector as a high level general point. It's one of those things where I want to kind of give myself a little bit of a love slap here. I mean, wake up, SJ. Why didn't you say that earlier? It's so important for context. But anyhow, it's new home cycles here for you, Leo. just keep that in mind. Where's Aries? This also can support the Aries sector, which the sun rules and Mars also rules. What if there's some kind of new vision with this new home base? You're able to kind of study or travel or have some kind of new extension into learning realms that the home base can set up for you. Okay, let's push through. We've got now Virgo rising, and things now shift to the third house. You can see the way that this is ordered. It's just we're going by house topics. Part of why this is being done in this way is that the ruling planet of the new moon is with the new moon. So there's really one major house to consider. And for example, if Mars was here, ruling the moon, we would have a whole another major topic to consider. But we're really just talking about this one house right now. For you, Virgo rising, it's siblings, it is close community, it is writing, speaking, thinking, it is your neighborhood. What is happening with some new action for you in that sector? And maybe resource-based, and home-based, where you have some kind of new money coming in and you spend it on your friends. You take your friends or your siblings out, give gifts for people. This could be good for Thanksgiving, to like hang out with your family. And maybe you're going to be the giver of good tidings and joy and bringing some good food for everybody to eat. This is lovely, I think, for you, Virgo rising. You've got Mercury right here in the fourth, talking to family and parents. If you have, time and you're around your parents right now this weekend or into next week, maybe you're going to ask them about their lives. I always said that my favorite thing was with my grandmother. At the end of her life, she died when she was 97. I spent a lot of time with her. All I would do is would sit with her. She was totally lucid to the end. I say, what was it like in 1940? What was it like in 1930? I learned so much about American history and the history of like my family and the history of the region where I'm from, just from listening to her. It was a beautiful and amazing to get to talk to my, elder in that way. So do that if you can. It'd be my advice to you, Virgo rising. This is where your chart ruler is. It's in your fourth house during these transits this weekend. So Caroline, Mars will ingress into Sagittarius and square Saturn and Pisces on 25 November. What the fuck? What the hell, Mars? Yeah, it will. And go watch that in World Astrology Report. It's going to be quite dynamic. I didn't address the Mars Saturn square here. I'm going to talk about it in the full moon in Gemini live stream because it's embedded into that chart very tightly. But I didn't get a head out here. In this video, maybe I should have. Can't cover it all, there's always so much. Okay, Libra rising, how are you feeling? Has Venus settled you? Are you feeling good and settled with Venus? Are you feeling aligned with selfhood? That's a major component of your moment. Mars is Kazemi here in your second with the new moon. How might your resources then be opening up for you, given that the selfhood has this settlement with Venus there? And so that's what I would think. Maybe you're going to, buy something new or plan something new or organize the space anew to give yourself the ability to act. The second house is as much about the materiality around us than the cash in the bank. And so, action, which is what Mars is supported by clearing away the second house from clutter. It's very much the trine to the sixth, right? The daily grind, the possessions. When those two are Marsified, we have clear space to act well and to support the daily life. Even health is supported by the things around us, right? That if you breathe in like the cleaning products and stuff, that can affect health. That's all the possessions around us, or the soaps or whatever. So, okay, I'm going to move now. Libra rising, that's plenty there. Scorpio rising, we've done this already so much. You had this in your first house. I won't say much more. I encourage you to, who are you becoming? That's the major thing. Who are you becoming right now? All of last year with eclipses there. All of eclipse season this year, right? A Mars ruled, not a Mars ruled eclipse rather, but Mars was in Scorpio for the two Venus ruled eclipses this eclipse season. It's all leading to something, and it's leading to this week. And what is the selfhood that you have become and are becoming? And how can you take action grounded in that new self that's been born out of all of the transits we've experienced? That is the major, major deal here for you. Look for partners too. Uranus, Jupiter, maybe there's some kind of flash of insight around partnerships like I spoke about earlier. Sagittarius rising. Mercury has entered your first. I think it's good when we talk about themes of selfhood to communicate about the self. explore new knowledge, new articulations of self, all through this period until the direct station in early January of Mercury in your first house. It's kind of cool, Sagittarius rising. You've got a whole self-exploration thing going down with that Mercury communicator of the gods assisting you. So I love that for your moment. But maybe, you're coming out, and this week with this new moon and with Mars here, it's very much a retreat space and maybe challenges where you've had to fend off or fight off some challenges. And then now as things pile up in your first, to me, that is feeling like implementation of action here later in the month around whatever kind of challenge you has climaxed here and that you're now moving out from. So I'm excited for you, Sagittarius rising. Really, really cool. Venus in Libra, maybe you're going to get out and join some groups here with this sextile between the 11th and 1st as planets begin piling up in Sag. Social media or groups in your community or professional networking can be a big part of this moment as you come out from this very kind of tower moment in the 12th house this weekend and in the next week. Okay, so Rebecca, hey, cutting out much from my life so I can focus on what is asking for expression through me. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing with Libra rising. I think it's a great example here of the Scorpio in the second house. We cut things out around us, right? That second house, so we can express the self. Venus in the first. Yeah, and I was telling, it's funny that the eclipse consequence is not settled at all. This came up on X Twitter where there's these debates always, like I was saying, I had a tweet, I was like, one marker is when the moon leaves the sign of its eclipse, that eclipse season is over. And people it created a little bit of like, no, eclipse season isn't over until this new moon. And my retort to them was, wait, no, eclipse season's never over. If you want to play that game, it's arguably never over, because the consequences that get triggered sometimes never end. They never go away, right? That's how powerful eclipses are. Or they can last 6 months or 2 years. And so, I was offering it not as like, I don't think it's a hard and fast, strict determination on when it has to be over or not over. I tend to want to just kind of have an all-inclusive, here's different models for thinking about it. But I think it's wise. Great to hear you, Rebecca, that the eclipse consequences, it may not be settled for all of us. These things take time. And the nodal transit doesn't end until 2025. And the last eclipse in Aries is in 2025, so we may be taking a long time, and we are likely, if I was talking to a client right now, I would never say, oh, the eclipses are over. I would be focused more on 2025 for this cycle to end. It's more of that local space of intensity can maybe hopefully have settled at least a little bit. So it doesn't have to be as kind of raw, would maybe be one way to express that. So, okay. So let me see. We're here on Capricorn rising. What's going down? We've got Saturn in the third. Cap rising. How's your community work going? How did that direct station go in 4 November? What's going down with new relationships with the people around you or siblings or other close folks in your life? Those new foundations are being laid. In this new moon moment, right in the 11th, I feel this feels like the trine between Saturn and Mars and the luminaries. That wide orb trine is very loud for you this weekend. So like maybe it is figuring out who your real friends are, your real close associates are. And I don't mean that in some kind of weird way, but it might just be like that Uranian realization around groups and that new self that's born in groups, that you may be kind of converting some of those relationships into those closer, like these are your true close besties, you might say. Or, maybe you're going to run for president of the community org, and this is the election this weekend, and you step into your Paul Atreides power moment. Okay, Aquarius rising, new foundations and resources with Saturn at the same time that you have this new moon in your 10th. This feels loud with like quitting that job. I know I talked about it a few times, or accepting the new position this weekend, or saying, no, this is how I'm going to do my money stuff now. You now know. And so now you speak your new voice in terms of everything surrounding your current configuration with career or action in the world. Beautiful to see. Good luck, Aquarius rising. I love this for you. Prominent 10th house new moon and all of your career, job, action in the world stuff kind of coming to a head, supported by Saturn's new foundations in your second. Let me see here. Fascinating history. Everything considered residence lining the way we like to see Aquarius rising. Beautiful, beautiful. Hey, lovely, Monica. Love to see that. I think this is such a cool time to be launching into this Kazemi for your 10th house. So cool and so beautiful. And the new foundations around resources being laid here. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, let me skip to the final one, Pisces rising. What's going down with you, Pisces rising? I'm coming back to Saturn now because it's right here direct in your first whole sign house. How was that? You know, I bet you had some power, maybe purges or new clarity around who you are coming in with this stuff. Monica, I've been studying Austrian economics. Value is in the scarcity of time. Yeah, isn't it beautiful, the scarcity of time? How Saturn and Pisces is that? It's the scarcity, but then the value, right? Venus being the exaltation lord of Pisces and the value. And then once we understand how precious time is, we really are freed, aren't we? Into some kind of creative like realization of like the greater oneness of all being. Because it's like, so it's scarce, but then it's in some ways infinite. I don't want to get too far off on that, but you know, I do feel like there's some kind of major Saturn and Pisces there, contemplations on the nature of time. After all, Einstein published his major paper, Saturn and Pisces, 1904 or 5. I forgot. I think it's summer 05 or it might be 06. So thinking about time could be a big one for all of us right now with that direct station of Saturn. Where's this new moon for you? And I'm glad we're here with a new moon in the 9th of big ideas, transformational mental states. And so we're talking, thanks for that comment, Monica, because it's like, this could be very much for you, Pisces or Pisces rising. Like, what are your beliefs about reality and time itself? And how are your kind of supernatural, spiritual, esoteric powers emerging this weekend and into next week and supporting who you are and who you're becoming? Lovely and beautiful stuff. So that is the final slide. Those are the horoscopes. Everybody, take care out there. I hope you have a lovely weekend and an amazing week ahead. You know, peace out to you. Thanks for showing up and thanks for being here. And for sharing astrology with me, because this is why, you know, I love astrology. It can be solitary. It often is when we're with texts and going into ideas and texts, but it's all worth it because we get to share with people that resonate around these topics with us. So find your community, and I really appreciate you being here with me today. And I will talk to you next time. Take care, everyone.